E-Biology class, Fatima Convent High School. Myself, Dipali. Chapter 7, Control and Coordination. Class 10. Now, in the previous session, we understood that the environment and the changes in environment are called as stimuli. So, the change in environment to which the organism respond and react is called stimuli. The environmental factors such as heat, light, cold, touch, taste, smell, force of gravity, etc. are stimuli to induce responses and reaction in living organism. So we can say that the response and the stimuli are the factors which help the body to work in a controlled and coordinated manner. The working together of different organs of the body of an organism in a proper manner to produce proper reaction to stimulus is called coordination. And for this coordination, we have two systems in our body. The first system is the nervous system, and second system is the endocrine system. Now let us first understand what is nervous system and how does it function. Now the nervous system is composed of specialized cells called neurons. And these neurons are structural and functional unit of the nervous system which exercise control by sending electrical impulses called nerve impulses. So, you can see the structure of neuron in this particular diagram. This is the structural and functional unit of nervous system. There are about 100 million neurons when a person is born, and neurons are not regenerated. Once they are destroyed or damaged, you don't get any new neurons replaced by those damaged ones. Now this neurons is made up of the following parts. The cell body. The function of cell body is, the cell body is also called as cytone. And it has abundant cytoplasm called neuroplasm and peripheral nucleus, mitochondria, neurotubules and neurophiles filled in it. And it contains the main body of the neurons. Then we have the dendrites. They are the branch-like structures coming out from the cell body. There are several short branches stretching out from the cell body and they conduct nerve impulses towards the cell body. So the function of dendrites is to carry the impulse towards the cell body. Then we have the next structure is axons. It is a single, very long cylindrical fiber rising from the cell body. The whole thing here which you can see is the axon. And the function of axon is to conduct nerve impulses away from the cell body. They have an insulating and protecting sheet of myelin around it. So the purple colored sheath which you are seeing around it is called as myelin sheath. So the function of axon is to conduct nerve impulse away from cell body. They have an insulating sheath called the myelin sheath. This is the myelin sheath. The neurons lie end to end in a chain to transmit nerve impulses. Each neuron receives an impulse through its dendrites and passes it on to the next into the chain from the axon via cell body. There occurs a very minute gap between the terminal portion of axons of one neuron and dendrites of the other neurons, which is called as the nerve ending. And the synapse, it is also called as synapse. The synapse acts as a one-way valve to conduct impulses in one direction only. This is because chemical substances called neurotransmitter is secreted only on one end of the gap, that is axon side. So we can easily understand the structure of neurons from this diagram. The major parts are the cell body, dendrites and the axons and the axon terminals or the synapse. This each one is connected to the other body or other neurons at the dendrites, which is easily seen in the diagram. These are the receptors and the axons or the terminal axons which are attached to the muscles and axons and then the cell body and dendrites. So we can easily understand the structure of neurons from this given diagram. Now let us understand how these axons function or what is the function of axons. Now the nerve impulses travel from neuron, nerve fiber and synapse, and we have various receptors to receive these signals. Now first let us understand what are receptors. Now we know that in animals such control and coordination is provided by nervous and muscular tissue. We have studied about this in class 9. Touching a hot object is an urgent and dangerous situation for us. We need to detect it and respond to it. How do we detect we are touching a hot object? An information from our environment is directed by a specialized tip of some nerve cells. These are called as receptors. So, receptors are usually located in our sense organs. They are nerve, inner ear, the nose, the tongue, and so on. There are various receptors for various functions. So, you can say that the receptors are specialized structure in human body that receives external stimuli. So, receptors can be defined as a specialized structure in human body that receives external stimuli Now there are various receptors, mainly 5 types of receptors. First one is gustatory. These gustatory receptors are present in the tongue and they are responsible to detect taste. Second is the olfactory receptors. They are present in the nose and they detect smell. Third one is the receptor, which is also called as touch. You can easily say, where can you feel the touch? Yes, in the skin, and it detects touch. Then you have the fourth one, they are photoreceptors, and they are present obviously in the eyes, and they are responsible to detect vision. And the fifth one is audio receptor or phone receptor, which is present in the internal ears and is responsible for detecting sound. So these are the 5 receptors or the 5 sense organs, and they have the receptor signals. Now these receptors are attached with the dendritic tip of the specific nerve cell. So the nerve impulse travels through the neurons, nerve fiber and synapse. Generation of impulse sense organs have specific receptors with the dendritic tip of a nerve cell. Now the information of external stimuli is received at the dendritic tip here, which is attached to the muscles or the sense organs, and an electric impulse is generated by a set of chemical reactions. Now how the transmission of this impulse takes place? The information acquired at the dendritic tip of the nerves is setting off a chemical reaction that creates an electrical impulse. Means the chemical reaction is converted into electrical impulse, and this impulse travels from the dendrites to the cell body. And then allow the axons to its end. At the end of the axons, the electrical impulse sets off the release of some chemicals, and these chemicals cross the gap or the synapse and start a similar electrical impulse in the dendrites of next neurons. This is general scheme of how nerve impulses travel in the body. A similar synapse finally allows delivery of some impulses from the neurons to other cells, such as muscle cells or glands. So, can you see how it occurs? So, after the receptor muscle receives the signal from the sense organs, it passes on the impulse to the dendritic tip and travels from the dendritic tip to the cell body. This impulse from the cell body travels to the axons and finally reaches the nerve end. So what we have? What we can say that from the receptors, it goes to the dendritic tip. From dendritic tip, it goes to the cell body to axon, and from axon it will go to the synapse, and from synapse to the next neuron, that is at the dendrite of the next neuron. This is how the impulse reaches and gets converted from the chemical signal to the electrical signals. Now, will you be able to answer these questions? So, it is thus no surprise that nervous tissue is made up of an organized network of cells called neurons and is specialized for conducting information via electrical impulses from one part of the body to another part. Now, can you identify the parts of neurons where information is acquired? So, where do you get the information? At the dendritic tip, through which information travels on as electrical impulse from the cell body to the axons, where this impulse must be converted into chemical signals to forward for onwards transmission. It gets converted from the synapse or the dendrites. So, what can you give the answer? First one is information acquired at the end of the dendritic tip of the cell. Then information travels through the dendritic cell and along the axion to its end as an electrical impulse, and at synapse this impulse is converted into chemical signal of onwards transmission. So answer number 1 will be dendrites. Number 2 will be axions, and number 3 will be synapse. Is this clear? Now put some sugar on your mouth. How does it taste? Block your nose by pressing it between your thumb and index finger. Now eat the sugar again. Is there any difference in its taste? While eating lunch, block your nose in the same way and notice if you can fully appreciate the taste of food as you eat. Is there a difference in how sugar and food tastes if your nose is blocked? If so, why might this be happening? Read and talk about possible explanations of these kinds of differences. Do you come across a similar situation when you have a cold? So let us answer this. What does it say? When you put a sugar on your tongue in the mouth and we block the nose, then what happens? The taste of sugar is sweet. And when you eat sugar, after blocking your nose, we find no difference in the taste of sugar. And if we block our nose, we feel the taste but cannot appreciate because the olfactory receptors are not stimulated and we cannot feel the smell. And yes, when we have a cold, olfactory receptors are covered with excessive secreted mucus, and so we are not able to smell or taste the food nicely. Is this part of the chapter very clear? Next, we are going to understand about reflex action. Thank you.